Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time, and I'm here for another watching AI videos so you don't have to. And this is going to get even more interesting. And now, because of some things I have learned since starting this series, I have absolutely no problem ripping these things down. And some of the points made I may agree with, but the biggest issue I have is that all these AI channels that have been coming out, especially within the last few months, and just pumping out the same information, using the same lines over and over again. Everything in them is AI generated or AI gathered. Some of the points are good and some of them are absolutely ridiculous. So again, do not be trusting AI for your information and learn to see the signs. Some of the things that you can tell by, thumbnails, they never look quite natural. And if you go to that channel's page and you look through the thumbnails, you'll notice you'll never see the same person in there twice. You may hear the same voice in every video, but of course it's all AI generated, but you never ever see their face. And they're constantly making claims like, no other preppers are talking about this, or other preppers don't want you to know, or you need to run out and buy X amount of this right now. And if you listen closely enough, you'll hear a lot of mistakes throughout the video, as well as see some, like images that don't match anything that they're talking about. So this list is actually based on two different videos that I'd come across. And in one of those videos, I was clued into it because somebody had let me know that, hey, I saw a clip of you in this video, and they gave me the name of it, and I went and looked at it, and I was like, oh, it's an AI video. And the clip somewhat fit to the topic, but wasn't entirely accurate. And it was definitely from one of my own videos. And then not long after I got this particular list made up, somebody else emailed me and said, hey, I saw you in this video. And it was a video about growing beans. In both of the videos, clips were taken from many different channels, several which I recognized. What I care about is that AI is pushing channels like mine out while stealing our content to make their own. And that's really frustrating. So I'm doing this series in order to kind of buck the system, fight against what's going on, and also to share some good information and straighten out some stuff that's really stupid. The two videos this is based on were very, very similar. And one of them said, 12 foods preppers never ignore. And then the other one said something like 12 foods that preppers never talk about. And it's like, well, which is it? So anyway, the first one is hard white wheat berries. Never talk about, excuse me, I've been talking about hard white wheat berries in particular since the beginning of my channel because it's one of my favorite grains to store and use for bread making. And you'll see that if you go back to 2016 when I first started my channel, any videos where I'm talking about grinding wheat berries into flour and hard white wheat being one of my favorites. It's the one that's always made up my blend. Currently, it's hard white wheat and barley because barley has its own specific benefits and it's a softer grain, and hard white wheat is hard, and the two combined together, that makes a really great flour in my personal opinion. But yes, I do store this up. Number two, milk powder. Excuse me? Who's not talking about storing up powdered milk? But my problem with what they said in the videos was so stupid. Was they're talking, it was talking about how you should only store non-fat milk powder. Well, I 100% disagree with that. I have been storing whole milk powder for years. In fact, before I could even get my hands on whole milk powder because it was hard to find, I had some non-fat milk powder stored, and that stuff did go bad. It's not that it went rancid, it just tasted horrible and it clumped terribly, unlike the whole milk powder I've been storing for many years. And whole milk powder is going to have a lot more in it because of the fat that's in there. And if it's stored properly, it's not going to go rancid. You don't have to worry about that. And it tastes so much better than that non-fat milk powder crud. So I even store heavy cream powder, which has even more fat in it, and have never had any of it go rancid. Oh, and butter powder as well. Number 3, chia seeds. Yes, I've talked about chia seeds, and I do store chia seeds, and I vacuum seal them into jars. I get the organic chia seeds from Azure Standard these days, and I vacuum seal it up along with many other seeds like flaxseed. Flaxseed in particular is more apt to go rancid. So that one, I do definitely make sure it gets vacuum sealed. One thing they also constantly are pushing are, how you must use oxygen absorbers. No, you don't. If you're vacuum sealing your jars, there's absolutely no need for oxygen absorbers. I find them a complete waste of money and time. In fact, I had somebody, it was the first time somebody came in and said the same thing, and 100% agreed with me and believed that the oxygen absorbers were created more as just a selling point and getting pushed, and then everybody believing they had to have them. Remember, there was a time people were putting up food, dried food, long before oxygen absorbers were even invented. Okay, number 4, raw organic honey. Again, what person is not talking about this? I've talked about this. Raw honey is something that I definitely do store, and it is a great thing to store, and it has an unlimited shelf life. And being that it's raw, it's got many health properties for healing, and of course it's got calories, and it can be used in so many different ways. I have used it to make medicinal tinctures, mixing it with my homemade wine, and it can also be used in poultices and more for wound healing. And the list goes on. I even have a video on the benefits of raw honey. Vinegar. Nobody's talking about storing vinegar. How dare they? How about some of us are actually talking about how you can even just make your own out of whatever you've got growing outside, even if it's stuff you're having to forage out in the wild. As long as you have sugar, you can make vinegar out of anything. Or honey. You can use honey to make vinegar too. I go with the organic cane sugar because it's cheaper than the raw honey. But I have lots and lots of videos that go back 10 years making vinegar out of flowers, herbs, fruit scraps of all kinds, bananas, mangoes, peaches, and apples, of course, even dragon fruit. And I'll just go ahead and put my whole vinegar playlist in the description box down below if you want to learn how to make it yourself, because it's really cheap. And I make a lot and I store it. And yeah, so I always have vinegar on hand. Now, I will admit that we also do store just plain white junk vinegar that we can get for cheap, wherever we can get it the cheapest. However, I'm finding that even just buying the just junk white vinegar is getting more and more expensive. So I'm just gonna start falling back on what I make myself and making more. But that vinegar gets used for removing mineral deposits and so on. So that's what that gets used for. And then my homemade vinegar gets used for pretty much everything else, from cleaning to used in foods and used for washing my hair and so much more. And of course, we know that vinegar can be used for preserving foods, which is another great reason why you should have some on hand. And yes, if you get your acidity high enough on your vinegar, homemade vinegar, it can be done. You can use that for preserving foods. Number 6, sardines. Well, I've talked about storing sardines before, not as much as Stacy from Off Grid with Doug and Stacy. And the reason why is because they like sardines a lot better than Patrick does. And I love sardines. But Stacy has videos showing people how to use sardines in meals. And the reason I like to stock up on sardines is not only is it a good source of protein and the omega fatty acids and vitamin D and selenium, because they're in these nice little cans, they're also great things that you can just shove into like a go bag and you have a pretty much instant source of protein. When I get them from Costco because you can get those, they're the better quality ones, and the olive oil and sea salt and I forget the name of them. I'll put a picture of them here. So that's the ones I get, and you can get the best price on those at Costco, at least on what I've seen so far. All right, lentils. This was specific to lentils, but really any legume that you can stock up on. However, the nice thing about lentils, whether it be your green split peas or yellow or red or whatever color lentil is your favorite or all of the above, the nice thing about lentils is they cook up far faster than whole dried beans. Unless, of course, you're cooking the dried beans and then dehydrating them and then vacuum sealing them into jars. Those cook up really fast. Those cook up the fastest when you do that. So what I do now is, like when I make a batch of chili or a batch of beans of any kind, I will use what I need for that particular meal, whether it be making a tamale pie or doing the hillbilly beans and cornbread, and then I'll take whatever's left because I'll make a big pot. I used to take whatever's left and can it, but now what I do is I dehydrate it because it takes up less room in the pantry, and then I can simply pull some out, pour it into a pan with some water, and it rehydrates really quick. You just cook it for a little bit. And so, in fact, I just cooked up some chili for Patrick the other night using some dehydrated chili I'd put up. It's just a great way to store it. But you can also can them. Can the excess, and now they're ready to go for whatever meal you need them for. But yes, just a great source of protein that is a lot cheaper than meat, though I absolutely agree with storing up as much meat as you can as well. Okay, number 8 is coconut oil. Another one I've talked about quite often. Coconut oil is one of the oils that I probably store the most of because of its practically indefinite shelf life, especially if you're storing the refined coconut oil. And just because it's refined doesn't mean it's not still a healthy oil. And refining doesn't always mean it's done in a bad way. There are now more natural ways that oils can be refined. And then they have a pretty much indefinite shelf life and can be used in so many different ways, from making salves and skin creams to using in cooking, baking, and in frying. And it is a very healthy oil to store up on. There's this push for storing freeze-dried vegetables and fruits. Now, I do have some freeze-dried vegetables and fruits stored up. And I was kind of getting into that in the early days until I found out there was a lot of that freeze-dried stuff I really didn't care for, and I preferred the dehydrated or canned better than the freeze-dried. But when it comes to things that we can't grow, such as pineapple, mangoes, bananas, I don't mind storing up some organic fruit like that so I can have it on hand to make a special treat. But that's not absolutely necessary. You're better off finding what you can grow for yourself. Like we have apple trees, and I can store up all kinds of dehydrated apples, and dehydrated apples can be used for making pies and crisps. You can even turn them into applesauce down the road by simply adding water and cooking them and then blending them up. Now you've got applesauce. So you don't have to pay a lot of money to stock up on freeze-dried vegetables, nor do you have to pay a lot of money unless you want to store these things or buy a freeze dryer and make that kind of investment. That's got to be up to you. If that's your thing and you love that, fine, then yes, do that. But people need to understand these two things are not necessary. People were storing food in dried and canned forms long before freeze dryers were even invented. It is not the one and only and best way to put up food. In fact, if you do a little research, like I've done in the past when I was considering getting a freeze dryer, they're always promoting how, they have the best nutrient content over time. Not entirely true. Maybe sitting on the shelf, they might hold their nutrient value as long as they're stored in a dark container and vacuum sealed and stored in a cool place. But as soon as you cook any of that stuff, any nutrients you may have preserved by having it in freeze-dried form is going to get lost. But in all your canned, dehydrated, frozen, there's so many more nutrients that just simply don't get lost with cooking. Your protein, your carbohydrates, your minerals, your fiber, these are things that will always be there. It's usually just a couple of your vitamins like C and A that are going to get lost first once they are cooked. Okay, nutritional yeast. This was one of the ones where one of my clips was shown, but I was vacuum sealing dry yeast for bread making, not to nutritional yeast. However, I do agree with putting up some nutritional yeast. It can be a way that you can add flavor as well as some more B vitamins, because usually those are enriched with B vitamins, and yeah, you can, and they might be synthetic. So that's something to look in for yourself. But nutritional yeast can be an easy way to store up something that would be like, have that cheesy flavor if you're wanting to add a more Parmesan flavor to something, or if you're vegan and you like to make your own cream cheese per se. I have a video on this, by the way, how to take nuts, and you make whatever milk you're going to make out of that, and then you take the pulp from that and add some nutritional yeast and a little salt, and now you got a nice tasty cream cheese. Does it taste exactly like dairy cream cheese? No, but I actually still find it quite good. So having nutritional yeast on hand, I absolutely agree with. And I do have quite a bit of it stored. Okay, I just got two more. Food grade activated charcoal. And yes, I have talked about this one before too, and I know many other channels have as well. Charcoal is an excellent way to flush toxins out of the system. So in the event of accidental poisoning, you can drink, add some charcoal to some water and drink it down, and that's just going to flush those toxins out of the system. And it is an excellent way. It's a tried and true way that's been used in hospitals and more in such events. But charcoal also has many other uses. You can use it to brush your teeth for whitening. It's not my favorite thing to use to brush my teeth with. I've tried it a few times, but it does work really good for whitening the teeth. And if you want to encapsulate it or just continue to add it to water a little bit, maybe a teaspoon daily to water, it can help with your overall health as well as your digestion. Okay, and then the last one on the list was organic sprouting seeds. Now, I do have some of these on hand. I never got big into sprouting, but if that's your thing, it can be a really great way to get some good greens through the winter. And your sprouts are going to be highly packed with nutrients. A lot of times you're going to get the most out of the younger plants like that. So I do agree with this. There are two things that I put to the bottom of the list as things I don't recommend storing that were in these lists. And that was cheap garbage ramen noodles or cup noodles. Yes, they can be cheap, but with that cheapness, you're getting a lot of MSG and other garbage, all kinds of preservatives that are not good for your health. And the same goes with the bouillon cubes that years ago I used to store bouillon cubes. I do not do that anymore because the same reason. There's a lot of junk and additives in those bouillon cubes, in those packages, not just the seasoning packs in those noodles, but in the noodles themselves. If you read the ingredients, you're better off finding some organic, plain ramen noodles and then making your own seasoning for it. I've done this with organic ramen that I've purchased, and then I've made my own seasoning, adding my dehydrated turkey bone broth that I made myself, or beef broth, and then whatever flavors I want to add in there. Onion, garlic, maybe some thyme, maybe not, maybe something else. Whatever sounds good to me at the time. And dried cabbage. Love adding dried cabbage to ramen when I make it that way. So instead of stocking up on top ramen and cup noodles and some of this other trash, learn how to make your own broth, and you can either can it, freeze it, or dehydrate it where it's going to take up very minimal space. And then you can use that for making your soups, your ramens, and so much more. And then have all your own seasonings to create your own flavors out of things you either grew or bought organically and stored up on. This is where the spices and herbs, besides the medicinal value of most of those things, this is one of the great ways you can add flavor and diversity to your pantry. So anyway, that's I think it's part 4 of watching AI videos so you don't have to. If you would like to see the rest in the series, please go check out the playlist I'll be putting in the description box down below, along with whatever other videos I remember to add in there. And any thoughts, ideas you'd like to share, please put those in comments down below. And thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.